Good afternoon and welcome to another Midday Motivation here on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. I'd put it on MySpace, but I don't think they have that anymore. And if they did, I don't think they have live streaming. So I want to talk to you today, but first I need to bring in, not that this is sponsored by Skinny Pop, but if y'all want to sponsor me, that's fine. I want to talk about how popcorn has a lot to do with how the end of the year shapes up for us all. No matter what's going on in your world, no matter if you're ahead of your numbers, behind on your numbers, it's really critical that we understand what prosperity, patience, and popcorn have in common. Now, I also want to give a shout out to my good friend, Megan Galloway. If you're not following her on LinkedIn or on all the socials, go find her right away. She is a dynamic speaker, consultant. She is a phenomenal human being. And we were having this conversation around the end of the year sentiment and how sometimes we get into this mindset that the end of the year is coming and we've got to do all the things and we've got to create content and we've got to, reach out for billings and bookings and all these different things. But in actuality, it's a long game. And yes, there are times where an industry or several industries where people will slow down at the end of the year for whatever reason. But at the same time, we started talking about this idea about popcorn. If you think about popcorn, popcorn is if you don't like popcorn, I don't know if we can still be friends or not because I'm addicted to it, but popcorn is a delight. Popcorn is an experience. If you go to the movie theater, that's the first thing you think about. When you know it, when you smell it, it's one of those things that just brings joy to me, especially immediately, but to a lot of people. But popcorn doesn't just happen. If you think about the long-term creation of popcorn, you have farmers that will go out and they will plant the seeds to plant the corn, and they'll go through and they'll nurture it and they'll water it, and it takes time and it takes patience, because to get to this, you got to have that. Now, why I use this as an example, why Megan and I talked about this, is that a lot of times we get in this mentality that I did it, or I did the thing, or I put the post up, or I did the webinar, or I did the podcast. So all of a sudden people are just going to line up at my door, right? Not necessarily. I mean, if it works, absolutely great. But what I want you to think about is this. If a farmer went out and planted corn today, do you think tomorrow there's the reality that this humongous field of corn is going to pop up ready to go and be harvested? Absolutely not. It takes consistency. It takes attention. It takes the little details that you've got to put in to make that field worth harvesting. And so when we think about big things, when we think about big goals, big bookings, big clients, big contracts, all of the different things, they're going to take time. They're going to need that nurturing, that consistency. People are going to want to see that from you. Now, if you have a low-cost item, if you're selling, I'm thinking about gum, I don't know why, but if you're thinking about a small dollar item or a small ticket item, you don't have to put as much time into that. It's a frequency thing. Yes, there's some trust that gets built into some of the process, but it's a little bit easier to do these things. But if you have big goals, big aspirations, maybe you've got a big sales quota, maybe you've got a big contract you're trying to land, maybe you're really working on this consulting engagement and it's not cheap. There's got to be some trust built. There's got to be some proof points. There's got to be things put into it. If you're building a brand on social media, LinkedIn especially, there's a ton of trust and consistency that has to go into that brand building exercise. So if you want something big, if you want that big deliverable, harvestable cornfield to be able to sell to, I don't remember who the company is, to Skinny Pop, to sell this corn to be turned into popcorn, you've got to take the time to invest. It's not going to show up overnight. It's not going to you can't just plan it and ignore it and just show up in 2 months later and you've done the one thing. And all of a sudden, this popcorn's turned into this magical field in Iowa that all of a sudden you're shipping all this corn off to Skinny Pop. That's not going to happen. The reality is that we have to engage as much as we possibly can. And sometimes it's not just, you don't have to sit down and write content for 3 hours every single day. But if you're doing little things, little consistency builders, little efforts, little inputs into what you're doing, that goes a long way. And people will see that. And people will build trust and familiarity and affinity for who you are. And when you have that happen, more and more people will talk about you. If you're bringing the value to what you're talking about, if you're providing insights, things that people, maybe it doesn't have to be rocket science, but you're reminding people of what they can do better. That case in point. I want to share this message with people, and I want to share these midday motivations with people because I want you to have this mind check, this gut check in the middle of the day before your day gets too far down the rabbit hole of negativity and all of a sudden now you don't know what to do with. I want you to have this check-in to say, hey, what, now that I think about it, I've been panicking and freaking out and I've just come to a standstill. I don't know what to do. You got to keep moving forward because there are going to be ebbs and flows in business. There are going to be ebbs and flows in financial, in investments. There are going to be all kinds of different changes that happen. But if you quit moving, that's going to pass you by. So what are you going to do to maintain? What are you going to do to water that corn, to make sure that it's fed properly? What are you going to do to caretake the soil? You got to do the little things in consistent fashion to have the gigantic harvest, to have the gigantic contract, to have the huge sale. And if you're going into it with the right intention of just providing value, that will pay dividends. That will be the deliverable harvest that you need. And so it's important to take time, to be patient. And especially now that my video is lagging a little bit, to be patient and give yourself a little bit of grace. So I'm going to pause here because my feed has completely gone laggard. And as you're sharing positive messages, technology will try to disrupt you. Here you go. Me practicing my own emotional intelligence. Hey, there we go. So, as I was saying, it's really important that you invest in yourself, that you invest in the time, that you invest in the content, that you invest in the brand building as much as you can in little doses every single day. Those little steps forward, the little effort that you're going to put forward is going to be worth it. I know it's tough sometimes when we're staring at our financial statements or we're staring at our contract, or we're staring at our income flow or our contract flow. And all of a sudden you're like, oh God, what's going to happen? You don't know that somebody may be watching from the sidelines saying, you know what? That person is really putting out really valuable content. And now I've got them in mind for something at the beginning of next year, but I got to wait till Jan 1 or Jan 2 to reach out to them. But if you stop, if you give up, if you go into analysis paralysis, you're not going to build the consistency that's going to get them to send you that contract, to send you that offer. So consistency, patience, prosperity, that will become the end game if you're investing the time and the patience. And again, I'm not a patient person. I will fully admit that. So this is me taking my own advice. But when you show the genuine care in the process and you're patient with it, the prosperity will come. So focus on what you can do today. Focus on the little things you can do every single day, whether it's 5-10 minutes for outreach or a 30-minute bucket a day whenever you can, or whatever that looks like to build content. Figure that out for you. Because if you think about it, it's not as hard as if you're trying to bite off a whole bunch of stuff at once. It seems daunting. And of course, we're all, none of us really have 5 hours to go sit down and write a month's worth of content. But if you can block 10 minutes, 15 minutes and invest that time, it'll pay off in the end. So stay consistent, stay patient, and I wish nothing but prosperity for every single one of you towards the end of this year and into 2024 and beyond. So make sure that you are investing in yourself, make sure you're investing in the content, make sure you're investing in the journey, and it will happen. So thank you so much. Hope this midday motivation helps you in some way, shape, or form, but stay consistent, keep after it, do not give up, and keep believing in what you're providing, what value you're bringing, and things will come your way. Take care.